Hello everybody, my name is Alexis and I am here to present my autoethnographic account of being pregnant for the first time during the COVID-19 pandemic. In this piece, I explore potential narrative uncertainties for women during pregnancy, labor, and delivery. In addition, I focus on first-time parenting during a pandemic that often strips many women of prenatal and postnatal resources. I weave together in this particular piece my own narratives as well as others' narratives that I have heard about, but for the purposes of this presentation, I'm actually only going to talk about my own experiences. I am really interested in this presentation in focusing on shedding light on pregnancy during a pandemic, and this is a particularly difficult point in our history, and I think this is a really important demographic to focus on. Deep breaths. Inhale, exhale, breathe. The faint line appeared slowly on the pregnancy stick. I squint and examine it closely and find myself in disbelief. Overwhelmed, I call my husband into the bathroom. "Do you see what I see?" I say with both glee and horror. He confirms. We embrace and I instantly feel anxious. This was my first time getting pregnant, and I did not anticipate a positive test after only a month of trying. My mother and her mother struggled with infertility, so I just assumed that I too would struggle. The initial shock left me with thoughts on how pregnancy would affect me both emotionally and physically. Emotionally, I felt a surge of grief. I wanted to call my mom, the woman who birthed me, the woman who was my emotional rock, the woman who would know exactly what to say in this moment, but I couldn't. You see, my mother passed away when I was 22 of terminal breast cancer. I thought a little bit naively that I could get through this pregnancy without her. After all, I had gotten through getting married, getting a house, graduating with my PhD, but this was different. This was a lot harder. Physically, I also knew I was going to struggle in pregnancy. In case you couldn't tell, I'm actually morbidly obese. I also have a myriad of little health issues here and there. I have herniated discs in my back that actually crunch, and this is the direct result of being a little bit too aggressive when I kickbox and also from being a package handler. I have thyroid disease, which needed to be monitored my entire pregnancy because it can lead to birth defects. Thanks a lot, genetics. I was unable to take my monthly shot. That's right. I have a monthly shot of allergies so that I can not have sinus infections. And so during my pregnancy, I actually had quite a few sinus infections. Much spiraled into my mind when I first discovered that I was pregnant. I knew I wanted this girl, and I knew that I was extremely happy. However, this happiness did fade, for after celebrating the holidays and announcing the news to my family, COVID struck. I told my students it was no big deal. I was teaching health communication at the time, and I showed them the statistics on the Johns Hopkins map and said, "See, this isn't going to be a big deal." Boy, was I terribly mistaken. Pregnancy all of a sudden looked impossible. I was not prepared for the emotional blockade that was foreboding in the distance. COVID-19 elevated my fears to remain healthy, and the CDC also later labeled that pregnant women were at high risk. Deep breaths. Inhale, exhale, breathe. Red. I see red. I see blood. I'm not crazy, I see red. Tears stream down my face, and I continue to call my doctor, panicking, begging for help. I spotted my entire pregnancy, and I was not able to go to my doctor every single time. COVID restrictions made doctor's visits less frequent and heightened my concerns. When I had an anatomy scan, they told me that they could not see all of my baby's brain or head. They were not able to see her nose. They were not able to see all 4 chambers of her heart or her spine. Rather than have me come back sooner in a couple of weeks to do another check, my doctor insisted and encouraged me to wait 2 months. My doctor said he'd normally bring back women after a couple of weeks, but he wanted to keep me away and keep me safe because of COVID. I can't even begin to describe to you what it feels like to wait 2 months wondering if there's something seriously wrong with your baby. My mind wandered as I had daily panic attacks. Toward the end of my pregnancy, I had severe bleeding and rushed to the hospital. I just couldn't take it anymore. I needed to get assistance. I needed help. This was my first time. I didn't know what was normal or not. Deep breaths. Inhale, exhale, breathe. I became vigilant in quarantining, sanitizing, and wearing a mask anytime I needed to leave the house. I canceled all of my first-time celebrations, including my baby shower and my husband's surprise trip to Memphis. I watched as people I knew did in-person celebrations. I was trying to be responsible for both me and my baby's health. We went with a virtual shower and fully anticipated not to get anything. I was shocked to see how many gifts started to arrive at our door. That was one of the few great moments in my pregnancy during COVID. People showed up for us. Talking via Zoom was a bit awkward, but I felt I finally had some semblance of a normal first-time pregnancy experience and tradition. I still wanted more. I wanted to get hugs from loved ones. I wanted them to feel my baby kick in my belly. And that distance broke my heart. I felt isolated, neglected, and in a state of emotional despair. Deep breaths, inhale, exhale, breathe. I watched as many people did not take this virus seriously. Did these people not care about me and my unborn baby? I could not stay home. A test done for my prenatal care. Did they not understand that it wasn't just so easy to stay home if you were in the high-risk demographic? Going to doctor's appointments actually became laborious because as I went, I was stopped at the door, had my temperature checked, and then I had to be asked a series of questions about COVID. Once I did all of that, I would check in and I'd have to go back to my car and wait for a phone call. I was not allowed to sit in the waiting room. It felt as though I was having a baby in a post-apocalyptic world. My doctor informed me that appointments would be more spaced out because of the virus. It felt as though my prenatal care was diminished and many of my questions went unanswered. I searched tirelessly for support from others only to hear, "At least you and your baby are healthy," and "There will always be time to celebrate when this is over. Don't even worry about it." Support networks tried so hard to encourage me too and said, "Everyone thinks it's going to be over by August. You'll be fine. No big deal." Unfortunately, all of their predictions into the future were not accurate. Deep breaths. Inhale, exhale, breathe. "Oh, you had a quarantine baby. We know what you did during the pandemic." I did not plan this. I found out I was pregnant in November. This was before COVID was even known worldwide. I started to hear people call my baby a pandemic baby. And I don't know why, but this frustrated me to no end. I was actually angered by those remarks and still am. My baby is special. And she's not just special because she was born during a pandemic. She's special because she is mine. Deep breaths, inhale, exhale, breathe, push! I decided to induce on my mother's birthday. I was excited to think that she would be born on the day that my mom was born. But I also knew I had no real other choice. No one could actually watch our sweet Australian Shepherd dog, Luna. And so because of COVID, we needed plans for her to be watched and she needed to be kenneled. Emotionally, I also felt like I needed some sense of control. And I felt like getting induced was the one way that I could be in control of something. I could have a date that I knew I would be in the hospital for her. My husband and I entered the hospital masked. It would be only him and I. No one else was allowed to visit the hospital. My dad and his girlfriend drove their RV to welcome the baby in masks, socially distanced outside in the heat of July with a newborn baby. People told me that they would have loved if they didn't have to have people there be in the hospital, or they would have preferred not to have anyone come visiting them in the hospital. I didn't get the option, choice, or even experience to have people come visit me in the hospital. I couldn't tell if I loved it or hated it because it simply was not allowed. And I lost my mom, and having my one parent there as a support network was extremely important to me. I longed and wished more than anything to have my dad in that hospital to visit me and to make me feel supported when I was so sad. Losing my mother and not being able to see my dad was probably one of the most heartbreaking experiences, and it truly broke my heart into pieces. Breathe, push! The birth of my daughter was the only time I stopped thinking about COVID. My labor was not hard, 8 hours total, and I actually felt no pain. Thank you, epidural. My nurses were good to me, and one nurse informed everyone that I was hearing impaired, so I could hear the doctors and nurses better through their masks. She was here, and this was the one moment that COVID and worry could not and would not consume my mind. She was born on July 28th. my mother's birthday. I felt my mother's presence as I held my sweet daughter in my arms. Despite labor going well, I was not offered much help in the hospital. I did not see a lactation specialist because they wanted me to keep contact with others very minimum. Nurses infrequently came in, and they only came unless I needed something. And I left the hospital feeling ill-equipped and unsure if I could take care of myself and my baby without the proper tools. It felt as though the world was so focused on the virus, they had forgotten about a demographic, expectant mothers, that may benefit from attentive physical and emotional care. Within 24 hours after delivering my first child, I was sent out of the hospital. No tools, not sure what I was doing, and I had to try to figure it out and navigate it on my own. Deep breaths, inhale, exhale, breathe. Pregnant women, especially first-time pregnant women, may potentially suffer through an isolating and traumatic experience giving birth to a child during a pandemic. Many missed out on important experiences and joys that often accompany pregnancy. There was a lack of information in my experience that left me wondering what to do. I was lucky to be able to have my partner attend the appointments with me. That has since changed at my doctor's office. I knew so many pregnant women who were not able to have their spouse or significant other there to support them. They weren't able to look at the ultrasounds together. They weren't able to engage in the joyful experience of seeing their child together. They were scared. I know that this experience has tested my strength and my mental well-being. My daughter still has not really met her family. She's greeted by faces on a screen. I worry every time I have to take her to a doctor's appointment or her physical therapy about the virus and her potentially contracting it. Because she is only 4 months old, she is not able to wear a mask out, and so I try to cover her the best I can with her carrier cover. These appointments are also extremely seldom. My pediatrician doesn't want to do monthly checkups because of COVID, so she's only seeing my daughter during her shots. She actually told me that normally she would want to see her once a month until she's about 6 months just to check up on her, but it's safer not to do that. I take her alone as only one parent can accompany her, and when she's screaming during her shots, I want more than anything to just have my husband there as a support, and I'm not able to do that. To all the fellow mothers out there who experience pregnancy during this time, you are strong. You are a warrior. Your mental health matters. Your post and prenatal care matter. And more needs to be done to better assist women who are dealing with pregnancy and labor alone during this pandemic. COVID has affected so many mothers, their pregnancy, and their motherhood. And just as a final note, I wanted you all to be able to see the beautiful girl that I endured all of that COVID and pregnancy struggles with. She was definitely worth every moment of it, but it is definitely a difficult experience. And I think that more people need to be talking about this and talking about the struggles that some women are facing right now because of the pandemic and their experiences. I am very lucky that my labor and everything went really well, and I feel for women who have to be in the hospital maybe alone, or they can't have visitors and they are there for a long period of time. So I just wanted to introduce my sweet daughter. Her name is Nova, and I am really excited to see presentations for this conference and excited to be attending it, even though it's virtual. I think that it is so important for us to be sharing our narratives and the importance of autoethnography. Thank you so much.